As President Prevost said, my name is Hannah Maxwell, and today I'm proud to introduce the man I've had the privilege of calling Papa John all my life. I never could have imagined, nor can I now, fully express the gratitude I feel today to be one of the 3 generations of Maxwells represented in this commencement ceremony, alongside my dad, Joel Maxwell, and my grandfather. Growing up in Papa's mighty wake of leadership, I often heard him say, "True success is when those who know you the best love you the most." This couldn't be a more perfect way to describe how I feel about my grandfather. Throughout the ups and downs of life, Papa John is consistently the same person on stage as he is with our family and friends around the dinner table or out on the golf course with me and my brothers. With one exception, if Papa is not meeting with pastors, presidents, or CEOs, you'll most likely find him wearing a bathrobe and his very favorite baseball cap. One of the many things I admire about my Papa is that he doesn't just preach biblical values and leadership principles. He fully embraces these convictions daily as a champion for Christ. Through his example, Papa taught me that as a Christian leader, my most significant purpose in life is to make the name of Jesus known, rather than my own, through the way I love God and unconditionally value people. As his granddaughter, I've had the blessing of knowing how deeply loved, valued, and intentionally prayed for I am by my grandfather. I pray that each graduate here today receives this same gift in knowing that as his Liberty family, you too are loved, valued, and prayed for, especially leading up to this monumental day. Now, would you please join me in the great honor of welcoming our 2022 commencement speaker, Dr. John C. Maxwell.
You want to say a word while we're getting ready?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. This is my granddaughter Hannah, and this is my son Joel. And my son Joel obviously is much slower than my granddaughter Hannah. Joel went to Liberty when he got out of high school, and he's such an entrepreneur. After 2 years, I said, "Come home and do your business." And he became a very successful businessman and decided he wanted to come back and finish his schooling, and he has. I'm so proud of him with straight A's. And Hannah is I've been introduced by a lot of people. This was a surprise for me today. And I just am so proud, not only of my children, but parents, aren't you proud of your children and your grandchildren? Give them a hand, would you? Hey, wait, stay here. Could you take a picture? Take a picture.
I hope it was a surprise. I told Hannah if the word got out, I was going to take her degree away from her. Let's welcome our speaker, Dr. Maxwell.
Wow. Yes, it's a total surprise. Hannah kept your secret. Just give me a moment. It's such an honor to be here with you today. It's such an honor to be at Liberty University. What a great university. Not only a great academic university, but one that stands for incredible values that make a difference in a world that so desperately needs good values. And so to you, Jerry, my friend, and all of the faculty and the parents, families, to you students, it's an honor to be here today, very much. And I want to congratulate you for this day. By the way, there's a tendency to think that this is a weekend where you became successful, but this is a weekend where your success was recognized. You were successful when you decided to go to Liberty University. You were successful when you went to class. You were successful when you took your test. You were successful when you studied. So many times people confuse what success is with recognition of success. You've already been successful. You just are getting recognized for it today. So congratulations very much. I'm often asked by younger generation people such as you that if I could go back at 20, 25, what would I want to know then that I didn't know when I was at that age? And so I want to talk to you for a little bit today on what I wish I had known when I graduated. What I wish I would have known when I was seated where you are today. And I would like to share with you some things that will really make a difference in your life. And the first one that I would like to share with you is very simple. Intentionally grow every day. You see, when I graduated from college, I thought, well, I finished that. Now I can get into in my life, which was ministry and pastoring. And after a couple of years, I had a breakfast with a mentor of mine, and he asked me the question, John, what is your plan for personal growth and development? And I had none. In fact, when he asked me the question, I thought, well, I never thought that I should have a plan for growth. And that day, he said to me these incredible words. He said, John, growth is not automatic. If you're going to grow in your life, you have to be very intentional. I seem to think that if I just did my job and showed up every day, that growth would happen. And that began to literally change my life. And I began to ask myself, what areas should I grow in? And over the next few years, I discovered that if I would find out my strengths, what I'm gifted in, and if I would spend time really committed to growing in those areas, I could really develop myself and hopefully make a greater impact upon my world, hopefully be a champion for Christ. Now, the areas that I worked on were the areas of my strengths, things such as communication, leadership, equipping, my mindset, attitude, having great relationships. I became very specific to grow in those areas. Of course, my daily walk with God had the priority of every day developing myself as a Christian. A couple of years later, still in my 20s, I heard Earl Nightingale say one day that if I would spend 1 hour a day, every day, on the same subject for 5 years, I could become an expert on that subject. And I was so in love with leadership at that time, I thought, I would love to be an expert someday, maybe in leadership. And Earl Nightingale said in 5 years I could become one. So every day for 5 years, every day, I spent an hour on leadership, reading books on leadership, talking to leaders, asking questions, practicing leadership, just leadership. And I kept thinking 5 years. You know, Earl Nightingale said I would become an expert in 5 years. So as I'm going through my growth process, I'm kind of asking myself, well, how long will it take? Well, 5, 4, 3. I was kind of doing like a countdown. But in the middle of my 5-year journey, I saw that I was changing on the inside, and I was beginning to really be able to lead well, and my influence was beginning to expand. And I quit asking the question, how long will it take? And I started asking the question, how far can I go? And that changed my life. I didn't become an expert in leadership in 5 years. I've been teaching leadership, training leaders for 50 years. I'm still not an expert, because the more you know you don't know, and the more that you have to continue to grow and develop yourself. And that's why those words from my mentor that day were so wise, that we have to continually grow. It's not like I got my diploma and now I'm kind of done and I won't have to read any more books. Thank God that's over. Free at last. No. It's a process. It's a continual growth process in your life. Harvard Business Review last summer said the average shelf life of a degree from a university now is 5 years. What that means is the degree that you're getting, congratulations. The work that you have done, congratulations. The journey that you're on, congratulations, must continue. It's what you know after you learn it all that counts. It's the pursuit of continually developing and growing in the area of your strengths. So find your strengths, the 3 or 4 things that you do really well, and then be very committed to consistently growing yourself. The second thing that I didn't know, if I would be sitting out there today when I graduated from college, I want to share it with you, is that I would encourage you to be better on the inside than you are on the outside. You see, what we know matters. And it's obvious you know a lot more since you've been at Liberty University than when you came, and you've had great teaching and great professors and a great environment to expand your mind. So every one of you have traveled greatly in your knowledge, what you know. And what we know matters. But who you are matters more. And I would encourage you to, in your life, travel within. And the more that you grow and travel within, the more you can travel without. I can still remember when I was pastoring, and I had one of the 10 largest churches in America, and I was just 32. And I was writing books, and they were really beginning to sell, and life was getting quite good, to be honest with you. And then I began to look at other people that were successful on the outside, and yet I would see that their marriages would fall apart, or that they really weren't doing as well as you would expect them to do in their kind of success arena. And many of them were kind of falling out of the ministry. And I kind of looked around and I kept asking myself the question, why is this happening? Why is this happening to people that seem to be outwardly doing so well, but inwardly the world is falling apart? I can still remember it was in late 1985, beginning of 1986. I decided that I needed to develop a personal definition of success for me, that I couldn't let the world give me their definition of success. I had to figure out on my own what is success. And so after a few months of really working hard, diligently going inside, asking questions from people much wiser than me, I came up with a definition that has served me very well for 40 plus years as a personal definition of success. I only give it to you, not because it should be your definition. I only give it to you because the inside has to be strong. And if the inside is strong, it can handle what's on the outside. And so for me, success was very simple. Those who know me the best are the closest to me, love and respect me the most. That became my definition of success. It wasn't what happened on the outside, it happened on the inside. That's why this morning it was a little emotional for me to see my granddaughter Hannah and my son Joel. Jerry, just let me stop for a minute. You really surprised me. You just did. Hannah and I are going to have a talk this afternoon about keeping secrets from her grandfather. You may get your diploma, but you may not get your inheritance, sweetheart. And trust me, you want the inheritance. But let's talk about this personal definition of success for just a moment, because I want you to have one, and I want it to be yours. I want it to be yours. I want you to own it. So when the outside kind of maybe isn't doing well and it's falling apart, the inside, the core is still strong. Let me just say this. When I went to my personal definition of success, that those who are closest to me, know me the best, love and respect me the most, that gave me a solid core for all the other stuff that happens into my life. In fact, let me explain it to you this way. If people who don't know you well like you better than those who do, you're in trouble. You're already on a slippery slope. And so I would encourage you to really work on improving the person that you really are, who you are on the inside. My wonderful friend, Truett Cathy, who started Chick-fil-A and passed away a few years ago, when Chick-fil-A was just really starting to take off as a company, he had a lot of other people around him that were saying, we need to get bigger, we need to get bigger. We just, oh my gosh, people love us, we need to get bigger, we need to get bigger. And Truett Cathy would stop them and he said, no. He said, we don't need to get bigger, we need to get better. If we get better, the customers will demand that we get bigger. You see, Truett Cathy realized you got to be bigger on the inside before you can be bigger on the outside. You got to be better on the inside before you can be better on the outside. Jesus talks about that. Talks about building two houses. One builder put a house on sand, the other builder built a house on the rock. And by the way, when things are going well, both houses look fine. In fact, you say, I'm not sure which one I want to buy. They both look so nice. You see, you never know the difference until adversity comes and the storm comes. And then all of a sudden you find one had a foundation, one didn't have a foundation. One was bigger on the inside than they were on the outside, better on the inside. It stands. If you're bigger on the outside than you are on the inside, you'll fall. It's only a matter of time. I have the privilege of doing roundtables sometimes with youth, and once in a while I'll even spend a day with them and bring them to our home, and I take them through the office, and they like seeing all the stuff. And one of the questions they ask me all the time is all about branding. They'll say, well, talk to me about branding. I go pull out some of my first cassette kits that I began to share with others, and I share with them the success of it, and the kits look terrible. They just are awful. You wouldn't even want the kit if they gave it to you. And then I speak to them about branding, and I say, don't worry about branding. Here's a thought, just get good. If you're good, everybody will want what you have. And if you're not any good, there's not a brand in the world that can help you. Be bigger, be better on the inside. Trust me, it'll help you to stand. The third thing I'd like to share with you that I wish somebody would have shared with me at my graduation, this is kind of visual, so just hang with me for a moment. It's just very simple. Everything worthwhile is uphill. Everything in your life, everything in my life, every dream you have, every important thing in your life, it's all uphill. If you have a great marriage, it's because you worked at it. It was all uphill. If you build a great business, it's all uphill. Everything worthwhile is uphill. And yet we run into people every once in a while, and they don't want uphill. They want it quickly. They want it fast. You see, when everything worthwhile is uphill, it means it's going to take time. It's going to take energy. It's going to take intentionality. It's going to take effort. It's a process. By the way, I think it's kind of interesting that today is kind of a little rough weather day on our graduation. I kind of thought to myself, what a terrific life lesson. On some of the days that are most important in your life, it's going to rain. On some of the most important times in your life, when you have your biggest hopes, you're just going to find out it didn't turn out like you wanted it to turn out. You see, here's our problem. We have uphill hopes. But we have downhill habits. And you can't go uphill with downhill habits. And one of the downhill habits that we need to understand at this age is immediate gratification. We need to really understand that everything worthwhile takes time But if you stick with it, consistency compounds. What we are enjoying today at Liberty University, this incredible facility, tens of thousands of graduates, it didn't happen in the first year. It didn't happen in the first decade. This is 50 years of consistency of message, 50 years of consistency and focus and time and effort. So today it's easy in this incredible stadium to talk about champions for Christ. It's quite simple. We look at the thousands and we say, of course, we're going to change our world. But in the beginning, it's just a handful. It was uphill all the way. I was speaking at a conference recently, and during a break, a young man who was getting his MBA degree came up to me. Said, I love this leadership stuff you're teaching. He said, I made a decision a moment ago. I said, what was it? He said, I want to do what you do. My gosh, he said, you've written all those books. And by the way, all the books I've written, that's no big deal. If you've written that many books, there's really only one qualification. You have to be old. You can't write 80-some books if you're not old. You got to be old. You got to be old. I had a lady the other day say, you've written more books than I've read. So the kid comes up to me and he says, I decided I want to do what you do. I said, that's great. I like that. I said, could I ask you a question? He said, sure. I said, would you like to do what I did so you can do what I do? You see, of course, we get our goals set on incredible people and what they've accomplished. We say, man, I want to do that. I want to do what they do. You see, you don't get to do until you did. You got to did first. And if you did long enough, you may get to do, but the did has to come from the do, and we want the do, but we don't want the did. And by the way, if you want the do, but you don't want to do the did, you don't get to do the do because the did wasn't done. And if you don't do the did, you're just going to be in deep doo-doo. It's uphill. It's uphill all the way. It's not easy. It's not quick. It's not fast. But consistency compounds. Let me just give you a couple more. Gosh. I wish when I was sitting where you are today, I wish somebody would have come alongside of me and say, John, I would like to teach you how to get a return on your failure. We talk about an ROI in the business community, a return on investment. We talk about a return on time, an ROT, but I never hear anybody talk about an ROF. A return on failure. When I was very young in the ministry, there were some things I really wanted to do, but I was a little bit fearful, and I thought, I don't think I could do it. I'm really very young. I don't have the experience. And I found that the fear of failure held me back more than it could have and that it should have. And I had a wonderful mentor. Many of you would know his name, Robert Schuller, who when I was in my late 20s, he just kind of came into my life. And I was having dinner with him one evening, and I said to him, I said, you know, I think that failure has a little bit too much of a grip on me. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, let me give you a question, John. And if you'll ask yourself this question, he said, you'll attempt more things. The question he gave me was very good. It wasn't great. It was good. He said, you need to ask yourself, what would I attempt to do if failure was not possible? And for the first few months, I asked that question when I would say, well, what would I attempt to do if failure wasn't possible? And the answer was, well, I would go ahead and do it. If failure is not possible, I would go ahead and do it. Now, the reason it's not a great question is because it's not a realistic question, because failure is always possible. And so what I would do is I would attempt things as if failure were not possible. Then guess what? I would meet failure. And then all of a sudden I began to understand you can't eliminate failure out of your life. So do not miss this. This begins to be huge. I got a question for you this morning, and the question is, what would you attempt to do if failure were possible, but you knew it would give you a positive return on your life? When I started asking that question, I began to very successfully deal with failure. Now, here's your challenge. All of your life in our culture, you've been taught to separate success from failure. And people say, be sure to succeed now, and don't miss it, and by the way, don't mess up, don't fail. And so what happens is we separate success and failure, and we really want to do this, and we surely don't want to do that. And I'm here to tell you today, my name is John, and I am your friend. Listen carefully. I want you to keep success and failure side by side. They belong together. They do not belong separated. They should never be separated. Life doesn't separate them, so why should we try? Every month, for 40 years, I have a learning lunch. A learning lunch for me is very simple. I take somebody bigger, wiser, faster, smarter, more successful than me. I take them to lunch. I ask them 7 questions. I've done this hundreds of times. It's a tremendous growth tool for me because I intentionally grow consistently. And one of the questions I ask them is, what's the most important lesson you've ever learned in your life? And every time they give me the same answer. Hundreds of different people, highly successful, they give me the same answer. When they talk about the most important lesson they learn in their life, they always bring adversity into the story. They had a time perhaps in business where they went bankrupt and had to start all over again. Perhaps they lost a child sometime as a young family, and they'll talk about adversity. They always learn their lessons in adversity. They never learn their lessons in success. So listen carefully, because this is going to be good. I wish I had a graduation teacher that was helping me like I'm trying to help you right now. My graduation speaker was so boring. Hang on. Don't you ever separate success and failure. They not only belong together, they need each other. When you're successful and you're on a roll and things are going really well, you need to keep failure right beside you. Because in your success, if you keep failure close to you, it will teach you humility. And humility makes you teachable. And if you keep success besides failure, so when you're not doing very well and it seems like you're kind of in the ditch, don't miss this. When you seem to kind of be missing it more than you're making it, you got to keep success right beside failure, because success beside failure will give you resiliency so that you get back up and you don't quit and you keep in the game. And the only way that you can have humility and resiliency is by keeping success and failure together. You separate them and you get arrogance in success and you get defeat in failure. Keep them together. This is getting so good, I think I'm just going to warm up here a little bit more. No, let me give you one final thought, since the clock says I'm out of time. Don't worry, I won't be like your pastor who says just one final thing and you know you're stuck for another 30 minutes. But would you give me 3 minutes? I would say to you, value people. This is very dear to my heart because I think if you want to be Jesus-like, you need to value people. If you go through the Gospels, Jesus valued people that no one else valued. He valued people that the religious community could not handle. Why are you eating with the sinners? Why are you hanging out with those people? Jesus valued people. And because of that, his message and his life just drew so many people because they know he cared for them. So I would challenge you, value people. People are unlike you, people that are completely different than you would be. If you want to be like Jesus, if you want to be salt, if you want to be light, because people know when you value them and they know when you don't value them. Also, not only value people, value the fact that it's starting to rain again. So sit down and shut up. God bless you very much.
All right, we're about to come to a close because it's raining, but because John Maxwell is a champion for Christ. I'd like to have Dr. Hicks, Dr. Akers to come and join me here. We'd like to present him an honorary degree because of his outstanding service and being a champion for Christ, loving the Lord, serving the Lord, and training leaderships across this country and around the world. So by the powers that invested in me by the Board of Trustees, we present today this honorary doctor's degree to John Maxwell.